Am I the butthole for not pretending someone was a good guy just because he died? My 22 male uncle, 48 male, had a habit of leering at my younger cousins, late teens/early 20s. They're his nieces. He always initiated hugs with them, they never initiated, and when hugging them his hand just always looked a bit too low on their backs. And once I saw him staring at his niece's cleavage. On Facebook, he was always posting about how much money he made on some deal. He worked in finance. He would also post pics of him with women from his workplace, all attractive, much younger than he would. It's a finance job, not a modeling gig. It's obvious he purposely only hung out with the attractive women. As far as I know, he didn't do anything more than that. Just made girls feel like this older, overweight dude is effing them, and he never seemed to do anything in his free time that didn't put him near some younger women/girls. It was always a girl that was 18 plus, by the way. He died a couple weeks ago from diabetes and the funeral was last week. The service went smooth in the eulogy. Anyone who talked about him, mainly focused on his work accomplishments. Then people gathered around and had snacks/drinks. I was in a group of about 7 people, including some cousins, and an uncle and aunt. The uncle and aunt were talking about how selfless he was, telling a story about how he helped people he barely knew, like my cousin's 19-year-old friend, by helping her move furniture. I remember this. The girl had a housewarming and invited my cousin, her friend, and some friends over for. She told my cousin she could bring some friends. On the night of the party, my cousin told me about it, and said she wanted me to come because I was studying too hard lately. She invited me in front of some family, including the uncle, who died. The uncle invites himself over BC. My cousin said she could bring friends. He comes with us because no one felt like telling him no. At the party, he's the oldest one there. The host said she needed help to move furniture around and make things look better. My uncle's ears perk up and he says he has a professional interior designer friend, and he'd love to help her. He then asked, "How's Saturday? I'm supposed to see her then anyway. You'll love my friend. She's great." She said, "Yeah. That works." I got the feeling as if he used his female friend to make the 19-year-old feel more comfortable about him coming over. Later, I heard that after the interior designer left, he stayed back to talk with her for a long while before she finally got the guts to say she had to go and couldn't talk to him anymore. After my living uncle and aunt tell the story about my deceased uncle helping someone he barely knew, I said, "Well, I think he was just trying to hit on her." Everyone gave me a shocked look, except my younger cousins. They looked like their day just brightened up because someone finally said it. Everyone else just walked away and didn't say anything. Later, my parents called me and said I was inappropriate. Am I the butthole? Not the butthole. So many people don't speak ill of the dead, but when it's true, it's true. My mom died a while back and I watched so many people do the same as you describe, so selfless, so full of light. Yeah, no, my mom was a selfish bitch. She was a hardcore alcoholic who drove drunk and hurt people. She was abusive and only cared about herself, and she was found in a ditch on more than one occasion passed out drunk, but I digress. Not the butthole because you're realistic. Sorry for rant about my mom. Edit, not the butthole. I was in a similar situation with my grandfather. Funeral was just angering to those who saw his dark side. It suppressed how evil he was. But of course, it was thrown by those who didn't see or acknowledge that part of him, they only saw the good. Telling the truth about a creep is always going to make some people unhappy, regardless of when you do it. To you, you were looking out for your cousins. They were suffering in silence. To your aunt/uncle, you were tarnishing their memories of him. To me, the especially butthole-least thing and this is that people who didn't like your uncle still had to go to his funeral, wake. That is just keeping up appearances for those who didn't acknowledge your uncle's slimy shortcomings or were trying to remember only the good. I think the people trying to erase the bad were buttholes myself. Not just that, but while he was alive they were enabling him creeping on these poor young girls. Exactly. It also sounds like the family knew full well what he was like, a revolting, slimy creeper. Everyone gave me a shocked look, except my younger cousins. They looked like their day just brightened up because someone finally said it. Everyone else just walked away and didn't say anything. Sounds like original poster confirmed what a lot of people were thinking here. It certainly doesn't sound like anyone came to his defense or didn't agree. Later, my parents called me and said I was inappropriate. Again, it doesn't sound like the parents disagreed. Inappropriate is the highest they could put it. Besides, what original poster said was an honest opinion in response to the uncle being painted as something he wasn't. For all original poster knows, the uncle actually did overstep when he was alive, and original poster's courage to be honest in that moment will lead others to come forward about their experiences. Not the butthole, just maybe a little blunt considering the setting. Exactly. I hate grandma as much as grandpa because she stayed with him and continued to pump out girls for him to abuse, not leaving when the abuse was in her face, physical and emotional, and ignoring the sexual abuse. Obviously, there would have been financial and social consequences, 50s, Catholic, but Jesus, the cost of her inaction and enabling. If he died first instead of her, I'm sure she'd have kept up the charade. Even on her deathbed, she tried to sweep things under the rug. It doesn't matter if reality is too awful to realize/admit, it doesn't matter, it's your kids, and they will have had that as their formative experience for the rest of their lives. My dad enabled my mom by not leaving even when he had the resources. He just couldn't handle it. But I couldn't handle what I grew up in. It was ducking damaging. It was unnecessary. There was no need to subject me to it, it was just. They didn't. And they told themselves a story to justify it. Info, Op, did your parents elaborate on why the aunt/uncle felt you were a butthole? Were they really dismissive of your comment and have yet to broach it with you? I think I was giving his living aunt/uncle the benefit of the doubt. It doesn't say they flipped out, it doesn't elaborate on why they felt he was a butthole, etc. I am assuming that if they had a view that he was selfless and original poster illuminated them to him being a pervert, it would take them a little bit of time to process and decide if they want to maintain their old view, or learn more and support their children. I guess I was hoping that they were just in shock and needed time. But if they were truly just dismissive, then yeah, not the butthole for sure. And in all likelihood, they saw the signs and chose to ignore them. Especially if the cousins felt like their parents would dismiss their concerns, so they never broached the issues with their parents, again, assuming the cousins in this conversation were the kids of the aunt/uncle. I think I'm going to change my vote to not the butthole. Thanks user m_not_nice81. Reddit link. That or the fact that they felt it bad manners, even if 100% true. For 2 years after my sister's death, I only remembered the good. Then it hit me how horrible she treated me most of the time. I'm only trying to say that sometimes erasing the bad isn't intentional. I'm not saying that's what's happening in this story. Yeah, I had a pervert uncle. It came out at his funeral that he tried his crap on every female cousin and molested his own daughter. One cousin mentioned it and the rest of us one by one had our own Me Too story. It answered so many questions I'd had. The whole don't speak ill of the dead is bullcrap. I had an uncle like this, by marriage, his wife was my blood aunt. He never tried anything with me, but he befriended me when I was about 12, and always had porn mags lying around whenever we slept over. My family slept over frequently, as they lived in the same city where my specialist was, so we'd bunk with them, even into adulthood. This uncle is always telling me stories like I'm his effing bro. Commenting on my appearance, whatever. Cringy things like this. But he wasn't just some happy-go-lucky pervert. He also abused his wife terribly, was mean to his kids, was a sloppy-ass drunk, before his stroke, who passed out at the table every night, etc. It always irritated me. But then my aunt died in 2018. She got early-onset dementia a few years before she died. She lived her adult life with Crohn's disease. She weighed no more than 80 pounds the entire time I was alive. And he kept being nasty and neglectful right up until the night she passed away. When he dies, I'm going to find a way to piss on his grave without getting caught. Op is totally not the butthole. Maybe just pour out a can of garbage. I figure I'll just ziplock some pee and pretend I'm watering whatever flowers people deign to plant there. I mean, I've thought this out. Of course, the ironic thing is that pee will likely act as a nutrient for any live plants in the area. FML. It's so hard to desecrate a grave these days. I mean, as I understand it, pee is relatively acidic and can therefore F up most plant life? Or maybe you could drink something really gnarly before you actually pee and just use that. As one of those nasty-looking energy drinks where if you drink too many you explode. Good luck in your endeavor. I'm upvoting for that last line alone, oh my gosh. It's not unheard of to pour a drink, shot of whiskey, etc., out onto a grave. Who's to know if what's in your bottle isn't whiskey? Add some salt and a few drops of dishwashing liquid, it'll probably kill the grass if that's what you're aiming for. Won't anyone think of the poor, innocent grass? Why wait to figuratively piss on his grave? Do it now. Well, 2 potential showstoppers. He's still alive, that's one. Although I've more than once entertained the idea of just pouring the contents of a piss jug over his head. The other is that I'm trapped due to 19. My province is in total lockdown and I'm kind of stuck because I don't want to travel internationally. I grew up in a different country, but don't worry. I'm biding my time. He's on a list of 4 graves I plan to F up if I live long enough. I am aware he's still alive. My point being, let him know while he's alive that he's a butthole. So then. Piss jug to the face? Seems reasonable? Sadly, there are a lot of these uncles. Same thing happened with the younger girls in my family, myself included. I pulled my cousin aside once and said something to her, and the look on her face was one of sheer relief when she realized she wasn't the only one. Not the butthole and exactly this. My sister-in-law was a drug-addicted, alcoholic, narcissistic, abusive, entitled bitch who made everyone's life miserable. Including her son. She would call him disgusting, derogatory terms for gay people. He was 8, and abused him. She was 39 and sponged off her family and was in the middle of convincing her son he was her caretaker when they died. I'm sad my nephew has no mother now, but she was abusing him and now he's better off with people who actually love him. Sometimes you just need to get it out. I'm sorry you didn't have a better mom. LOL, and not the butthole. Good on you for outing the creepy uncle, and shame on the adults that turned a blind eye. Preach. I had an uncle that was creepy. He's my Aunt X and has been out of our family for decades at this point. But, I'll always remember the family gathering where everyone was outside. I went inside to get something, and when I tried to go back outside, he was in the kitchen. I was pretty young, maybe 6 or 7. He told me I had done something wrong, bent me over his knee, and spanked me. Of course, I went outside crying, not understanding what I had done wrong. As an adult, I now clearly understand what had occurred. My grandmother looked at me and told me I had clearly done something wrong, or else I wouldn't have gotten a spanking. That was the end of it. This effed with for years. I still don't tell my extended family about personal issues, and it gave me a very incorrect understanding of speaking up when something wasn't right. You have the opportunity here to change your family narrative for the better. Do not stop pointing out the truth, and if other family members do creepy crap, or even try to protect creepy uncle, call them out. I wish just one person would have stood up for me that day. I can't understand how spanking a child could ever be considered acceptable. Pouting face. In my country it has been outlawed since the 70s. What was he, like a predator or something? I don't know if the dude was a full-on predator, but I know he was shady as all get out, and that I didn't actually do anything wrong that day. My aunt ended up leaving him after he stabbed her in the stomach when she was like 6 months pregnant, so yeah. He's not what we would call stable. Baby and her ended up being fine, at least physically. He didn't say what's wrong. He just say you did something wrong. And then use that as justification for what he did next. Creepy and disgusting. I'll be honest. My husband has heard about this event before, but we've been talking more tonight about the event, and why it was so likely swept under the rug by my family. My family has always been off. For example, my grandmother was only 14 when my father was born. Grandpa was 19. There are clearly red flags here as well. I'm honestly just now realizing how effed up my family's history is. That being said, Op, please step in and change the family narrative. Good on you for outing the creepy uncle, and shame on the adults that turned a blind eye. Yeah. You know, the people who turned around and walked away without saying anything knew damn well what Op's uncle was. If they could have disputed it, they would have. Not the butthole. Are you sure he didn't do anything? Because it sounds like he put himself in situations with a lot of vulnerable young women. You should gently reach out to and show support for them. Yes. That should be done. You brought a great point. Yeah, but if original poster is a dude, might come off as creepy too. How? If I were Op, I would reach out to the female cousins and just say something like, "Hey, I know Uncle was creepy and often did things that made women feel uncomfortable. I think this sort of behavior is wrong and do not support the fact that the older generation in our family turned a blind eye on it. I just want you to know that if you ever need to talk about his, or anyone else's, behavior, I will listen and support you in any way I can." Oh, true. I was thinking of the cousin's friend with the moving situation. I was just thinking how there's no way he didn't take advantage of some poor vulnerable person. Not the butthole. Yes. Thank you for recognizing Op's female cousins in all this. If the truth isn't going to benefit anyone, then I'm all for letting it rest with the dead. But even if nothing more happened than the uncle being a creep, there could be a lot of value in acknowledging the truth in front those still alive. I saw how he was, that wasn't appropriate. Don't contribute to the normalization of that behavior and the invalidation of a young woman's gut instincts just because it originated from someone who died. Not the butthole. Thank you for watching. Please subscribe to be the first to know about Red Rabbit Reader's new videos. If you like our videos, please like them on YouTube and share them with your friends. We welcome your comments below. Press to start another of our videos.